Hey everyone, Pastor Dave here, and I just wanted to share with you some more reflections on our third week of doing our series called Goals, God-Sized Dreams. And I was reflecting on what we talked about last week and thinking about our closing lesson this week on this topic. I ended up coming across a very powerful quote that when I read it really made me pause and reflect and think about my own life. And it was from, he is a civil rights activist, an educator. His name is DeRay McKeeson, and I apologize, DeRay, if I am not pronouncing that correctly. But he said this, and I thought this goes right along with what we've been talking about. And he says, I have found that people are so used to thinking of why things can't work as a default orientation. It's really a discipline to think, be solution oriented, to remain engaged in possibility. We can do big things with big ideas. And as I said, that quote in itself reminds me of the several different things that we've been talking about within this series. And to go along with that, I wanted to share with you two different scriptures for you to think about, to reflect on this week. And the first is from 1 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7. And it says this. It says, for God has not given us a spirit of timidity, but of power and love and discipline. And then the other passage of scripture is in Philippians chapter 4, verse 10 through 13. And this is the Apostle Paul talking, and he says, but I rejoiced in the Lord greatly, that now at last you have revived your concern for me. Indeed, you were concerned before you lacked opportunity. Now that I speak from what I have learned to be content in whatever circumstances I am. I know how to get along with humble means. I also know how to live in prosperity. In any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of being filled and going hungry, both of having abundance and suffering need. I can do all things through him who strengthens me. So thinking about that quote from DeRay and thinking about this passage of scripture in 2 Timothy chapter 1 verse 7 and Philippians chapter 4 verse 10 through 13, there are three things that I want you to hold on to. One is we do not need to be afraid. Now, this doesn't mean we live recklessly and stupid. That's not what that's saying. But it says we do not need to live in fear. God has not given us a spirit of fear or timidity. He's given us a spirit of power, of love, and of discipline. And so we do not need to be afraid, is one thing I want you to hold on to. The second thing is this, that God's Spirit will be with us. So this idea of walking in power, love, and discipline is not just based on what I am capable of doing or what you are capable of doing. It's not just a self-esteem message, but it's helping us to remember we do not have to live afraid or live in fear because we have God's Spirit with us. And then when we are in challenging times, just as Paul talked about here in Philippians, that he had experienced lots of either ways of being poor and having enough, of the ups and downs of life. And he said, in the midst of all those things, that I can do all things through God who gives me strength. So we do not need to be afraid. That God's Spirit will be with us. And that God will give us the strength that we need. So I once again bring us back to what DeRay said when he said, we can do big things with big ideas. And we can do that because we do not need to be afraid. That we have God's Spirit with us and that He will give us strength. God bless. Take care. Have an awesome day.